everyone, my name is Kat Savage and I'm a professional artist, clinical hypnotherapist and well-being expert working with those in the creative arts sector. In my line of work, I get to meet some amazing, colourful people, from actors to artists, people who live their lives by their own rules, fueled by passion and determination to bring their unique talents into the world. I wanted to discover what it took for people to leave the usual 9 to 5 and hop on a dream, to capture their bravest moments and share these meaningful conversations with you, so that together we can explore the ideas, emotions and moments that could potentially change our lives too. The Brave Moment podcast begins now, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, probably the bravest moment not only for my guests, but for the whole world. So let's keep talking, have some fun, and enjoy the show. This week on the show, we speak to polymath performer Adam Moran. Adam quit his job in teaching to become a full-time singer, writer, poet and quizmaster, amongst other things. Best known for his involvement in the incredibly popular Building and the Skyscrapers and original project The Club Brothers, Adam is a tour de force of creative talent, and this interview captures just a moment of his infectious personality, which I'm sure is bound to make you smile. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the bearded wonder that is Adam Moran. Adam Moran, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to hear your voice. I feel like I haven't seen you for like a decade. It seems so long. How's your lockdown going?
It's going all right. It's going much better now that January is out the way. You know, because January is just that month, isn't it? It's if a month was poo, January would be it.
Because, I absolutely concur. Yeah, you tell me why you think it was poo, and then I'll tell you why I thought it was poo.
Because it's everyone's now, even on a normal year, January's rubbish because everyone's broke after Christmas. They're partied out. They've got a month where they've got to make, because you normally get your Christmas paychecks and stuff like earlier in December. So you've basically got 6 weeks to wait before a paycheck for most people in normal work. The weather's rubbish. You get about 30 seconds of daylight a day. And it's just, you know what I mean? It's just the worst.
I was just,
cold,
do you know what was
wet? Ugh.
I was feeling, because obviously we are of the performance variety, and it was the first, I worked out, it was the first New Year that I'd had like off in 20 years. That is ridiculous. I haven't.
Yeah, me too.
That was, and that just blew my mind. And it was kind of bittersweet because I did get to spend New Year socially distanced with my mum and dad, which was lovely. However, I was so sad that I didn't get to bring in the new year with all the, the band and all my friends and all the rest of it. And that just sort of set the precedence for the year. And then obviously 4 days later, another lockdown. So I think for creatives in general, it's just been a bit rubbish, hasn't it?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Today, as we record this, I can see blue sky, Cat. I can actually see it. Oh, it's glorious.
I went nuts yesterday in the supermarket and bought a whole heap of bird food, and I've just put it all outside, and I've got a whole heap of birds just fluttering around and cheeping and chirping. Oh, it's amazing. So spring-like. It's wonderful.
Spring is on the way. I'm very happy about this.
Me too. Right, I'm going to get down to business with you now, and I want to take you back in time, Adam Moran. Okay. You're now in your childhood, and I'd love for you to describe your childhood room and just what it was like in the Moran household as a child.
Okay, so I moved around quite a bit as a child because my mum and dad were Salvation Army officers, which is a vicar, but for the Salvation Army. So Salvation Army is a Christian church, and the vicars are called officers because it's for Salvation Army. So everything's like, captains and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same as a normal church, except you get funny uniforms and you play brass instruments, pretty much, is the only difference. And back then, the Salvation Army would move their officers to different Salvation Armies, different churches, between every 3 and 5 years. So when I was born, I was born in a place called in Wales, a place called Treharris. And then I moved to Swansea, and then I moved to Bristol, and then I moved to Devon. So it's kind of so my childhood rooms have changed quite a bit. At certain points in my childhood, I have 3 brothers. So at certain points in my childhood, I was sharing a room with a brother, usually on a bunk bed. And because I was the middle child, I was always sharing with an older brother. So I was always on the bottom bunk. That's what the top bunk was always claimed. But it was a classic little geeky room as well. My eldest brother Dean was really into, and I've kind of taken up the mantle as the years have gone on. He's a real techie person. So all the new like the computers and the consoles and stuff, like we're talking going way back here, like way to the Commodore 64, where you used to load up video games on a tape cassette and had to wait like 20 minutes to put the tape cassette in for this little, the rubbishest game you've ever seen in your life to load up. So my childhood bedroom involved a lot of watching my brother playing video games in it. And I remember I used to have Star Wars duvet, which I loved more than anything else. I was a big Star Wars.
You still got it, haven't you? I know.
I say nothing. I can neither confirm or deny. I was obsessed with Star Wars, absolutely obsessed with it. So I used to have all the figures and all that stuff. And my routine would be kind of quite similar as a kid. You go to school during the day, your mum would make you tea, you'd watch kids' TV, and then, you'd get your bath and you'd get put to bed. And when I got put to bed, that was my playtime. So I'd get all my little Star Wars toys out on my duvet, and I'd, when you see kids doing it, and they're doing all the voices, like, you'll never take me alive, I will, and all that. I used to do that until I got tired and then I'd go to sleep.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Do you know I find it so funny though? Because I used to be exactly the same. However, I was one of those kids like in the Neverending Story where I would just get a book and I'd put my duvet cover over my head with a torch
classic.
and read myself to sleep. So I was kind of with you in that imaginative world, but in someone else's world.
You were a 1980s Steven Spielberg movie. That's what you were.
As were you, by the sounds of it.
That's also true. Yeah, George Lucas. But, potato.
Oh, I love to hear that you're a creative and imaginative child, and that obviously that's held you in good stead all the way up into your life now, which is awesome. But can you remember when you were younger? Obviously, you were creative in your imagination, but did you know that you were a performer? Did your family know? Did they have an inkling that you might have some kind of talent?
Well, so in the Salvation Army, when you get to the age of 7, I think it is, you can become what they call like a junior soldier. So very similar to like, when kids get baptized and stuff like that. It's that kind of thing where you basically take a load of commitments and say, I promise to be really, really good. And I promise to do like more good things and bad things and, and all that kind of stuff. And say my prayers at the night and all that. But when you did that, you were then allowed to join 2 things that the Salvation Army ran. One was called the Singing Company, which was a little choir, where you'd learn nice little kind of gospelly Christian-y songs. And another one was called the Young People's Band, which was a brass band.
Wow.
And so when I was 7, I was I started learning a brass instrument, which turned out to be the most useless of all the brass instruments. It's an instrument called the tenor horn, which is basically, if you imagine a tuba. If you shrink a tuba a bit, it becomes a baritone. If you shrink it again, it becomes a tenor horn. And it works in a brass band and nothing else. So I was learning that, which if you've ever known anyone who learns a brass instrument, when anyone starts learning a brass instrument, all it really sounds like is lots of farts. And so I did that, and then I joined the choir, the singing company. But I used to get told off in the singing company because I was meant to be singing a melody. When you first joined this choir, you were put in the sopranos, and all the sopranos had the melody. But I much preferred harmony, and the altos got all the fun harmonies. So I just used to start singing their parts instead.
And that still holds true today.
Yeah, and that's it. And that genuinely, I think from a singing point of view, was the start of my kind of journey of me making decisions for me, kind of going, well, I want to sing this part, so that's what I'm going to sing. And I prefer the harmony, so I'm going to sing the harmony. And And yeah.
Do you know what? It's so nice to hear though, because obviously as a child, most children are not encouraged unless they're in a school which has a choir and they just so happen to be in the choir. They're sort of not encouraged to listen to music in that way, are they? And they sort of discover that the harmonic section of a piece of music later on in life. But it's lovely to hear that from the word go, you were on those harmonies and you are a wicked harmonizer. And from anyone that's seen you perform, they know the plethora of musical talent that you have. And just hearing that you learned a brass instrument when you were young, though, I'm pretty jealous because I was one of the recorder generation.
Oh wow! I mean, I'm not going to lie. We definitely had recorder class at school. I remember it well, but I think I blocked it away until you just said that sentence, and it all came flooding back in a rush of no.
Basically, recorders were like the wands of Harry Potter of today, weren't they? You were just handed one when you were like 5 and just told to play
Free blind mice.
until
Free blind
you left
mice.
school.
That was it.
Yeah. Oh my God. London's Burning.
Oh gosh,
another classic. So there you were, quite competent then at quite a young age in discovering music and discovering how music works. What kind of music were you listening to? Like as you were getting older and coming into those teenage years, what sort of music did you gravitate to as a consequence?
So weirdly enough, and do you know what? It's weird. This still kind of goes to this day, really. So I wasn't, unless I was in like someone's car, I didn't have a radio in my house. So I wouldn't. But my dad had a record player that then became a CD player, and then as technology and years went on, and Dad was the music listener really. So whenever we were on journeys, it was Dad's choice, and Dad had, shall we say, an eclectic taste in music.
Give us an example.
So, for example, journeys. So we go up to, our whole family come from a town in Yorkshire called Bradford. So we'd go up to Bradford at least 2 or 3 times a year to visit the folks, the aunties and the uncles and the cousins and all that. And so that was a 4-hour journey. So over the years, during that 4-hour journey, I got to listen to Bonnie Tyler's album many, many, many times. The Lighthouse Family's album.
Oh no! Oh, yeah. Not the Lighthouse Family.
The Cause.
Now I've got to shout out for the Cause because I'm a bit of a Core fan.
I mean, they're great. They are great. I've got a big old confession with the Cause as well. This is how music noob I was back then. That they covered the Fleetwood Mac song, didn't they?
Dreams.
Yeah, I had no idea it was a cover. No idea. I'd never heard of Fleetwood Mac. I'd never heard a Fleetwood Mac song.
But to be honest, that's kind of a good testament to the artist that's doing the cover, because if you don't know it's a cover and it doesn't ring any bells, then, fair play to the Cause for tricking you, the quizmaster of music. So, so I'm glad they've got one up on you.
Well, this is the thing. And honestly, music, it's really weird. Musically, my music education didn't really start for me till much later on. Creatively, weirdly enough, the first thing that really took with me was sketch writing and poems.
You're a man after my own heart.
Yeah, it's an odd one. And once again, that started within the church. I'd get hired to write sketches. So someone would bring me up and say, right, we're doing this meeting and the sermon's all about Jonah. And so can you write a funny sketch about Jonah and the whale and then perform it halfway through, and then that'll lead into the talk. So and obviously many stories in the Bible, they're funny to me. Jonah and the whale's the ideal example. A man gets swallowed by a big fish. Do you know what I mean? It's funny before I've put pen to paper. But I found it very, very easy to get creative with words. So I'd write loads of sketches. And it's really funny. One of the weirdest things that ever happened to me when I was 14 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night, literally bolt upright, and I just had an idea for 2 poems. And I got up and I wrote them both. And to this day, those are the only 2 poems I've ever written that I know off by heart.
If you know them off by heart, you're going to obviously have to demonstrate them on the show. So,
absolutely.
Chuck us one of them. Go on.
Okay, let's give this a go. I haven't done this for a long time, so let's see. So this, I'll do the one called Sophie's House. So bearing in mind, I was 14, so this was 1993. 95. Well, I was born in 80. Yeah, very good, 95. And I wrote this one called Sophie. Now, bearing in mind, Kat, because you're like a proper poet. Mine are more along with the Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhymes type poems.
Brilliant.
So let's see if I can remember this. I've now said I know it word for word, and now I've actually got to remember it. So it goes like this. It goes, well, I was at my friend Sophie's house when she said to me, "Here with your tried Calvin Klein number 3. Well, I hadn't, you see, so I tried to have a go. My hand was on my bottle when she snatched it and said, "No. Do you have any idea how much this stuff costs per spray?" Well, I'm no science boffin, so I simply said, "No way." Well, she replied, "Well, I do. It's 57p. I said, "Well, aren't you willing to spend that much on dear old little me?" Well, I let her off that one because I spied her Max Factor. But when I tried to grab it, she came at me like a tractor. "It's one thing to try my spray, but not my flipping cream. But you didn't let me try a spray. Oh, you are so mean." So we started shouting, calling each other names. Looking back on it now, it was all pretty lame. So I shouted, "Stop!" And she said, "Well then." I said, "There's a reason why we're fighting, and the reason is men. Max Factor, Calvin Klein, or they're all the same. If there's a problem in this world, men's the one to blame. So now we've solved our problem, and we never yell, because she uses Impulse body spray and I use L'Oreal."
You get the solitary clap.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm here all week.
But that was unbelievable. I can't believe that you wrote that when you were 14. That's so observational for the time. And I think it's time now that we actually have to hear the second one, because that was too good to leave on its own. Let's hear that second one.
All right. Okay. So this is more a Devonian one. Once upon a time, I wrote a little rhyme about me and my mate and how we almost met our fate. We were sitting on my gate one day, just chewing straw, when a truck careered off the road. It gave a mighty roar. Well, I noticed this truck, you see, it was coming our way. Norman nudged me in the side. He turned and said, "It's not our lucky day." Well, like I said, this big old truck, it was getting quite near. Norman turned with fear in his eyes. He looked at me and said, "Oh dear." It was around about that time I suggested we moved and made it quick. And so we did, and I tell you what, it was just in the nick of time, you see, because that truck slammed our gate right through, collided with the tractor and went straight into the poo. It's true. It's true. We looked at what was happening. I thought, no flipping way. And Norman said, "Well, it's not our lucky day, but look at him. He's definitely not done so well, you see, because that poor trucky driver didn't have a good day, you see. He'd slammed through the windscreen 40 foot up in the air. It was only as he was coming down that he realised where. Straight into a human combine harvester, human fricassee. His bits were all over my field for everyone to see. But even though he tried to kill me, I am no old miser, because that unlucky trucky made damn good fertiliser."
That is not. I mean, you're so astute. You're a natural comedian at 14. Well, a natural comedian.
It was, yeah. But weirdly enough, and I don't, I do, still dabble in poetry every now and again. But that they were the ones that were just, when I was a kid, I was just like, "Oh, these are quite funny." Did them, and I performed them at loads of places over the years and stuff. And yeah, it was just a weird introduction into the creative writing side of my life, which then kind of almost accidentally got put aside when the music stuff started taking over.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because I think we've kind of followed the same trajectory when it comes to creative writing, because music, it's so accessible and it's quite freeing, isn't it, for your voice in all of its aspects, metaphorical, spiritual, physical, all the rest of it. And you do end up sort of writing songs, which is essentially poetry to music. But the thing that I'm interested in, after you've just said that you sort of woke up in the middle of the night and had to write these poems down, is that something that I experience quite regularly, actually, as someone who does tend to write. And I know that you have gone back into that. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But do you find that your inspiration just hits you at random times and you just have that kind of flow state? Or do you have to now put yourself into sort of a disciplined, set of rituals almost to get that work done?
Best of both, I'd say, the Hovis approach. So yes, I absolutely get those moments where I get a flash of inspiration, and then it's up to me like with what I'm doing or whatever, whether I put whatever I'm doing aside and go with that inspiration, if that makes sense. Like I've had countless times where I've had a flash of inspiration and then thought I'll write that down later, and then by the time I've got home, it's gone, and I've been like, oh, you idiot. And then I've got times where, like I said, I've been hired to do things, and therefore waiting around for creativity to hit me in the face isn't an option. So I've got to sit down and kind of get myself in that zone anyway. But I do that just by especially with writing stuff, just by starting writing.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? If you just sit down, and even if you write the word write, then you're sort of getting over that fear of the blank page. And I always have this thing that I say to myself now, which is actually the blank page is more scared of you, what you can put on it, than the other way around. And if you start to see it that way, then it just makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it? And also to just write for the wastebasket. Whatever you write, just write it as if it's not going anywhere. And then you give yourself that freedom and no pressure to sort of perform.
Yes.
Ironic, I know.
Yeah.
So here you are at 14, you're writing poetry, you're taking on sketch work, you're singing harmonies in the choir and all the rest of it. What do your family think about all of this? Did they have other plans for you? Did they think, oh, this is a passing phase of creativity? Or did they really encourage you to pursue your dream?
They were quite encouraging, actually. They never... they let me make my own decisions, really, which is lovely of them. But yeah, no, they definitely, so Dad used to hire me to do all sorts of things. So like he'd go, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm going away to this church today to do a talk on this. Have you got any sketches that might be suitable? And he kind of spurred me on because he forced me to get creative in really silly ways. And a lot of these times what they wanted really was something that was quite funny, that had a little bit of a poignant ending, like something that would kind of hit a little moral home at the end of it.
Like Star Wars.
Like Star Wars, exactly. And so I'd come up with these stupid ideas, like one which was ridiculous. He was doing a sermon on Judas, which is the guy that betrayed Jesus before he gets put on the cross and all that. And I had this idea where I can't remember where I got this. Oh yes, it was a present from a girlfriend. I had this stuffed, cuddly white gorilla.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. And it was cute as anything. And I decided that this gorilla was going to be a character in one of my sketches. So what I did was I got a tape recorder and I wrote this sketch and I recorded all the gorilla's lines on this tape. And then when we got to the place, Dad would press play on the thing and the gorilla was sat on a stool in the middle of the stage and I'd just walk out and then this little voice would be like, oi, over here. And I'd be like, hello? Hello? And he'd be like, down here. And then I'd kind of look and go, hello? Are you talking to me? And he's like, no, it's the other talking gorilla. And I did a whole sketch for this. So the whole thing was recorded. So I had to get the timing just right. But the whole point was, weirdly enough, what started off as something absolutely stupid turned out the idea was that this gorilla was Judas's conscience. And by the end of the sketch, what started off as something really, really funny ends up with a man kind of essentially having a breakdown, basically saying that, realizing that what he's done wasn't what he should have done, kind of thing. And it's that kind of, and it was nice because you'd do these silly things and then you'd finish it and they'd be like, dead silence. Like, you've driven a good point home when you look out the audience and they're like, whoa. And it was funny. So yeah, so I was really encouraged by my dad and mum, bless them, did that. And then when I got to college, I joined a big band. So like a proper jazzy swing band and I co-founded the Exeter College Inspirational Choir with a lady called Laura Wright, which was basically our excuse to do kind of gospel-y feel-good music.
Yeah.
And those two were the two that really set me on my future path. Because one got me into swing and Sinatra and all that kind of stuff, and the other got me into gospel harmonies and chops and, and performance, essentially.
Do you know what? It's so lovely to hear that you had kind of like that eclectic musical taste that your dad obviously instilled in you at a young age, sort of travelling up the line with you as you were hitting college. And I was going to ask, actually, here you are surrounded by all of this stuff, but it sounds like you were sort of your own sort of unique solo creative. But Was there anybody that inspired you at that time? Was there anybody that you looked up to in the performance industries and thought, you know what, they're doing a really smashing job and I'd love to sort of follow in their kind of footsteps?
So at that point, it was all the people I really looked up to were, it was always from a writing perspective, really funnily enough. So I loved all the classic comedians like Morecambe and Wise, the two Ronnies, all those kind of double acts. Because I loved the genius in the writing, but also in the way they delivered them, the way they did their different characters. And that definitely instilled in me whenever I performed, I would always put on different accents and do you know what I mean? And be quite expressive when I was looking around. And I tried I used to use, they did a lot of silly wordplay, which I loved. So like, for example, there's a really silly one in the Jonah sketch I used to do. The Jonah sketch was essentially a narrator telling the story of Jonah and the whale and an actor acting it out who's basically doing everything in his power to disrupt the narrator's flow and kind of would, and would kind of interrupt the narrator and kind of have a go. And there was a really silly line, where the story is that, if people don't know Jonah the whale, God speaks to this guy and says, I want you to go to this place called Nineveh. Jonah doesn't want to, so he runs away, gets swallowed by a whale, says, I'm really sorry, and then gets spit out and then does what he was meant to do in the first place. So there's a really silly throwaway 3 lines in that where the narrator says, so Jonah was feeling really sorry for himself in the whale. And so the actor goes, all right, I'll go to Nest Cafe. And then the narrator goes, Nineveh. And I go, whatever. Super, super, super silly and very obvious joke. But if you're looking at the people that I was looking up to, that was where the laughs were for me. Do you know what I mean? It was that silly kind of slapstick word humour that I really, really loved.
And that comes, whenever I go and see you gig or I'm, lucky enough to be gigging with you, that comes across in leaps and bounds. Like you're just so cheerful, funny, charismatic with the audience, and instantly that audience feels safe in your hands. And that's a really lovely thing to witness. And, I'm so glad that I've had that opportunity. And if anyone's listening out there that hasn't gone to see Adam in any of his various capacities, please go and check him out because he's amazing. So sort of coming back to your music then. So here you are, sketching, poeting, being clever with your words, acting quite a lot. What drove you more down the musical route then? So
it all kind of happened accidentally. So when I was at college, once again, like I said, I joined this big band and I joined this choir. And up until that point, I'd only ever been part of choirs. Do you know what I mean? So I'd never done solo singing really. I think I did one when I was like 7 or 8, but that was, many, many, many moons before. So I didn't actually know if I was a good singer or not. I just knew that I could sing within parts of a choir and that I loved harmony. So the big band were doing that year, the way the Exeter College Big Band used to work is that they do, like, when they did their concerts, they do half instrumentals and half vocal numbers with the big band backing. And so that year they wanted to do, they had an arrangement of Come Fly With Me. And the guy that was running it, a guy called Yo Pugh, basically... Cool
name.
Sounded really cool, wasn't it? Said, all right, we need someone to sing it. Does anyone know the song? And I did. So I went, so I kind of thought, all right, I'll put my hand up. And he went, okay, Adam, out you come. So I picked up the mic and they started playing the arrangement. And it got to the bit where I came in and I did the classic, come fly with me, let's fly away. And then, such a cool little arrangement. And 2 lines in and he stops the whole big band. And he turned to me and he said, Adam. And I was like, what? I thought I'd done something wrong. And he's like, you didn't tell me you can actually sing. And up until that point, I didn't know that I could. But because of that, he ended up giving me 2 or 3 songs that year at college. And because of that, then I was more confident when it came to soloists within the choir as well. That because I co-ran it as well with this lady, Laura Wright, who now works at Exeter Music Academy. She runs that place. And has been actually, she's a lady that's had a big influence on a lot of musical people over the years in and around Exeter. So I'm just taking a swig of me water. So I started doing more like that. So by the time I left college and went to uni, I was used to singing in front of crowds because I'd done, the big band did a few, and the choir did gigs all year round, really. But still at that point, I hadn't really thought of music as a career.
It's so interesting because, and again, I can really relate to this. So as a child, I did all of my drama exams. I was I was a bit of a Shakespeare geek. I'm not going to lie. I really loved that stuff.
Yeah,
and loved drama and had it in my mind that I was going to go to acting school. And actually music was kind of my last choice. Not because, I hate music, but it was just kind of like the thing that I did alongside everything else that I did.
Yeah.
And I did manage to get into acting school, but I turned it down and went to music college. And that was all to do with a boy. Girls listening out there, or boys listening, anyone listening out there, don't give up your dreams for a relationship.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I'm saying it in Yorkshire accent so that you absolutely understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happened. And then I ended up going to music college in the end. And it was a second choice thing. Not that I would change a thing now because I appreciate the journey, but it was kind of the secondary discipline. And I'm hearing the same thing as you were talking. It was kind of the thing that you came to accidentally, as opposed to, yes, that's my dream.
It was, and it really was. Like it was my secondary thing. But the thing is, I was also I knew, because I love drama. So when I was doing my A levels, I was studying theatre studies and I did film studies, and I did, So I was always drawn to that side of things. Like you said, the performance kind of a writing thing. But when it came to actually choosing like where to go to uni and what to do with a degree, I didn't really have a clue. So I picked 5 different courses at 5 different universities, applied for all of them, and just decided that when I went round, whichever one felt right vibe-wise is the one I'd go for.
Yeah.
And so I applied for drama degrees. I applied for theatre degrees. There was one that was a drama and music. But the one I ended up doing was drama and creative writing joint degree. And I went up to, it was part of Manchester Metropolitan University, but it was in a place called Alsager.
Wow,
which
it sounds like such a magical place.
It's really not. It's like, no. No, it's not. It's a tiny little place. It's really near Crewe, which if you've ever been to Crewe, if you ever go up north, you'll go through Crewe by train.
You'll go through Crewe.
And so it was literally just there. And so I went there, and it was a very enclosed campus. It was half and half. It was half sports science students and half creatives. So it was a really random
that's
mix.
A mix.
Yeah, wasn't it just? It was an interesting 3 years. But that actually started and kickstarted my first soiree into actually writing music.
Wow. Can you remember what the first thing that you wrote was?
That wasn't the first thing I wrote. That wasn't something like an assignment that I'd been given. The first thing that I composed was an arrangement when I was at college, and it was a mashup of "It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing" with the theme tune to James Bond.
Theme tune?
Yeah, with the theme tune.
Oh my goodness, awful. I so want to hear that.
No, Kat, it was awful. It literally was like, it was like, "It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do out, do the It was honestly, it was so bad. But yeah, no, the first thing I wrote is, so when I went to uni, they didn't have a gospel choir or like an inspirational choir. So I decided to start one, but because I wasn't studying music. The way the uni worked was that the kind of all the music things had to have someone from a music department kind of taken on. So I met this girl called Laura, who was one of the music students, and she was wanting to do a choir as well. So I basically said, well, why don't we, put our heads together and come up with a little choir ourselves? And she went, okay. And then we needed songs for it. And I realized that there was a bank of stuff that I'd kind of learned for choir at the college that I could do, but I wanted to do some new stuff as well. So I started writing these little gospel-y type songs. And then making the choir do them. And there is only one bit of evidence in existence that these things existed, and that we did a concert in our third year that I recorded and is on a VHS tape somewhere in my room.
A VHS tape.
Yeah, but I edited. So I had multiple cameras set up, and the uni had an editor with Adobe something or other. But to this day, I wouldn't. I'm not a techie person. But someone came and said, right, you put your tape in, and you do this, and you do that, and I had to sync them all up and sync up all the audio and the visual. It was the weirdest thing, and I spent days and days in the edit studio doing this thing. And nowadays, if I can't do something technologically within 5 minutes, I throw my toys out the pram and storm out the room. So I don't know where that drive came from. But yeah, that's the only evidence of those songs that I wrote.
Wow. Oh, that's kind of good though. I'm kind of glad that we're from that era where things got forgotten and online forevermore, because there are some cheesy moments in my childhood that I definitely wouldn't want out there in the world. But it's good to know that you were so sort of savvy at such a young age. I'm really interested now, like, about what happens like when you came out of uni, because you kind of like leave that safe space where you think everything's possible and you're immortal and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you have to land on your feet and try and make a living out of this creative thing. What happened next?
So, one thing you need to know about me, Kat. I mean, the irony of me being on a podcast called The Brave Moment, when really I ended up as a creative completely accidentally. But I'm not a risk taker. I like to be financially stable. I very much like to know that month in, month out, I can afford my rent, my food and everything else. And, and then everything else is a bonus. So that's what started. I came out of uni and my first thought was, I need to get a job, and I need to get a job that gives me the same amount of holiday that my uni gave me, because I'm not going to be one of these people that only gets 5 weeks off a year. Not happening.
Nice.
So I got a job as I realised you could get a job as a support worker, which is essentially like a teacher's assistant, and you get all the school holidays. So I was like, this is the best thing ever. And it also gave me time to do a few other things. So in the college, back to the college, they had the Exeter College Big Band. The singing teacher at the college, a guy called Chris Wilson, had a professional big band. That what he'd do is he'd take his favourite students, and when these professional big bands did their concerts, he'd say, right, can you come and be the singer for this one? And I got asked to go along and sing at one of these things. And I started to become the regular singer. At first, it was me and a girl called Lizzie Parks, who was a phenomenal jazz singer. Definitely check her out if you get the chance. She's amazing. And then a lady called Penny Smith, and they kind of mentored me in kind of swing performance and and how to engage with an audience and stuff. And then off the back of that, I got invited to another professional big band where their main singer was off for one. He wasn't able to do one, so they asked me to come in. So I went into this big band where I knew maybe 3 or 4 people there. But one of them was a sax player called Neil Mayer, who was depping for another sax player. And we did the gig. And at the end of the gig, he came up, and he's the loveliest man ever. He sounds a little bit like Mr. Bean, but he's brilliant. and he said, Adam, I run a little swing function band, and our singer's moving to London. Would you be interested in the slot? And literally up until that point, I had never thought about doing function band stuff. And then, so I said, oh, okay, why not? Let's give it a go. And then that very same week, some of my old friends from the gospel choir, the inspirational choir at college, basically said, we're thinking about putting together a band. And the Salvation Army that ran holiday camps in the summer said, we want to do a prom for the kids at the end of a holiday camp. Adam, can you put something musical together? So it all, in the span of 1 year, I ended up from having no function bands to having 2, which I'm still in today. And that started me off on this singing other people's songs, but getting paid lots of money to do it. And I was like, well, this is great. And so for a long period of time, I was doing both these jobs at the same time. So a daytime working with kids, getting them their GCSEs if they failed on the first time round. And then by night, going out and singing either swing and soul and Motown or pop and funk and rock and roll with the other band.
Well, I mean, it's obviously held you in good stead because now, I mean, you're in demand for everything that you do. And I know that, you know, if you are coming out of a creative degree or a creative college or whatever, the best thing you can do is to start that function band or become part of that function band, because you can make that money. And I know that there's a bit of stigma attached, isn't there, in the music industry? Oh, if you're in a function band, it's somehow second rate to an originals band. But from what I've learned through experience, and I'm sure you have as well, you can make a very decent living with a function band, and then all that extra time that you'd have, you know, from not having that 9 to 5 at the end of it all, you can use to put towards original projects, can't you?
Oh, 100%. And that was the thing, I think. So I, once again, like I said, I'd never seen myself as an originals artist, and really that didn't come until much later on. In fact, that, you know, we'll get there. But so when I started, I was just, it was like the function band stuff was my hobby, but it was a hobby that paid, so I loved it. And the college stuff was what I did as my job. And I was like, this is my job and this is my thing, and I like singing other people's songs. And then the more I got into that scene and the more people I started to meet, in that scene, I met a lot of original singers and songwriters. The more I realized, exactly like you said, most people in that world were kind of original people that were doing the function band stuff to pay the bills and fund their original projects.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to be realistic about what you're doing, isn't it? Because a lot of people think, right, that's it, I'm going to leave college and become famous. And I think that's quite a big dream that many creatives have when they're leaving the education system.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not because of a lack of talent. It's probably more to do with time and place and networking. A lot of those incredible musicians, regardless of whether they're doing originals or covers, they sort of have to realize that actually the reality of the situation is you've got to work. You've got to put in those hours. You've got to get out there and perform and let people see you before that can become a reality for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's you know, we live in a world of try before you buy. And absolutely. So no one's going to invest in you until they've heard what you've got to offer.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and you see it time and time again with these young and up and coming kind of singer-songwriters. You see the ones that are going to go far instantly. And a lot of the time it's to do with, like, they're talented, obviously, that, you know, there is a level of talent that is needed. But I've seen people that have got insane amounts of talent fall by the wayside because they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to put themselves out there. They don't know how to, get those gigs, so to speak, go out there and do this stuff. Whereas I see others, a prime example being, I don't know if have you come across Sadie Haller before?
Yes, yeah.
So the wonderful Sadie Haller. If you look at her kind of stuff online and all the rest of it, when it comes to festival season, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, she's everywhere. She goes out and gets in all those festivals because she knows that especially for her brand of music, the style of music that she performs, that's where the people that are going to be able to give her opportunities are. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's where for that style of stuff. And she was born to do this stuff and she's very adept at it, you know. And then she's great online over the pandemic. She's been doing lots of online gigs and stuff. And, you know, she's one of many that I've been, you know, enjoying and watching over this period. But it's like you said, you've got to have a degree of kind of a bit of savvy, a bit of get up and go. You can't just sit at home waiting for the phone to ring because it's not good until you're at a certain level, you know.
You got to hustle, people. You got to hustle.
Yeah.
So talking about gigging, can you remember a gig that sort of changed your life where you were on the stage and you thought, oh my goodness, this is what I do for my life? Can you remember that gig and can you describe it to us?
I can indeed. I had started attending a music venue called Mama Stones.
Shout out Mama Stones.
Shout out Mama Stones.
Good years.
And I'd gone there. I was in a function band at the time. And I'd gone, my friend had basically dragged me along and said, I think you'll really like this place. And my first week there, a guy called Adam Isaac was on stage with the Mama Stones house band at the time. Amazing rock singer, lovely guy. But I went there and I was blown away by this band, which also included a guy called Steve Down on guitar.
Yeah, he's just done a podcast actually. If you haven't already listened to it,
yeah, there we go. So for the wonderful Steve Down from this very podcast, he was in, and I looked at these guys, and I was like, these guys are leaps. I didn't think that music could be that good, if that makes sense. So I'm watching these guys thinking this is. So I literally went back to my function band and said, we've got to up our game. And they were, what do you mean? And I kind of said, you need to come and listen to this band. Like, it's insane. Like the things that they're doing with these cover songs. It honestly. So I kind of, over the years, slowly kind of crept my way into this particular crew. I got to know all those people. I ended up on the stage doing the stuff with them. And essentially what was the Mama Stones house band essentially became my function band now, Building and the Skyscrapers. And we got hired to do a gig. So that was just saying I got this band through contacts through that place. But then we did a gig during the Rugby World Cup, where in Exeter they'd set up this massive stage in a place called Northern Hay Gardens. And after every match, they'd get a band on. And I remember getting on stage with that band, with Building and the Skyscrapers, to a crowd, a couple of thousand people there, singing the songs, and the crowd were just putty in my hands. Like, and whatever I told them to do, they did. Do you know what I mean? They were just, if I'd asked them to jump, if I asked them to kind of shout something out, if I asked them to, and I realized I was having the best time ever. And I looked around and I was like, and these are some of my closest friends I'm sharing a stage with. We're having a laugh. Everyone's having a good time. And I just remember thinking, I could do just this, Do you know what I mean? This could be it. If I can find a way that Mr. Don't Take Risks, is comfortable taking the leap, and that's the day I decided to work towards the goal of becoming full-time musician and nothing else.
I'm so pleased that you did, because I think at that time, I just met you. I was starting to get to know the Mama Stones crew, and I can remember seeing you perform for the first time and thinking to myself, man, this guy's going to go far. And if he doesn't, I'll kick him up the butt, because he's just so good. So what happened next? Did you leave your job and concentrate purely on music, or was it kind of a staged, phased out thing? So
it was a phased out thing, but it was a very planned phased out thing. So at that point, I took a decision that I was going to, and this, once again, like I said, I am not a risk taker. So I needed a plan, and it was literally pure for my own mental health. That I'm a panicker. So if I'm in a place where I don't feel comfortable, like financially, whatever, I panic, and it's not like I'm going out and having panic attacks. But what I realized was there was one other time when I came out of uni when I was in a little bit of debt. And it took me until I went to see my bank and say, and it wasn't a large debt, it was maybe like $1,500, I think. But for months, with what I was earning at the high school at the time that I was working for, I'd only be able to pay off the interest on the credit card and the interest on the overdraft. And I eventually went to a bank and said, is there anything I can do about this? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Take out this loan with us. We'll use it to pay off all that debt. So wipe your credit card debt, wipe your overdraft, set your overdraft then to, like bring it back in, rein it in, and then pay X amount per month, and then if you have a good month, you can pay a bit more. And I was like, okay, let's do that, and I did. And within a couple of years, I was debt free. What I didn't realize at the time was the effect that just that small amount of debt was having on my mental health. And the day that it was done, the day that I was debt free, and this was, like I said, it was a small amount of time, relatively speaking. I came out of uni in 2004 and I was debt-free by 2007, I think.
Which is, that's an incredible feat for anybody coming out of uni to be debt-free within just such a few years, because every artist experiences this. That phase of being a penniless artist is very, very real, isn't it? Because you're constantly having to, like you said, up your game, invest in equipment, invest in microphones, invest in this thing, then pay your rent, then pay your bills, then pay your council tax. And it's overwhelming, isn't it? So I can understand from a mental health perspective with how that must have really relieved your mind and giving you that access to a bit more of a limitless feel with your music.
Yeah, and it really did. And so from that point on, I remember feeling it. And that was basically when I said, right, and I basically made a decision that I'm never going to get into or do everything in my power to avoid being in any kind of real debt. So jump forward to when the decision's made that I decide, I go, right, I want to get to being a full-time musician. How can I do that? So in my head, I was like, right, I need to have X amount in savings so that if something goes wrong, I've got enough time and finance to then get another job and blah, 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 sort myself out. So, and then I thought, but I need to give more time to my music. So what I did was I did a phased leaving of Exeter College where at that point I was doing cover teaching as well as support work. So first thing I did was I dropped the support work completely and went just to doing the cover teaching. And then I brought the hours down of the cover teaching until I was only doing 8 hours a week. And then the final push then, I was like, right, okay, and while this was going on, the function gigs were getting more and more and more. So it was like this scale. As my work hours went down in one, they were going up in the other. So I needed to do it. Otherwise, I'd have been doing 2 full-time jobs, essentially.
And also when you're putting your energy into something and your attention into something, that's where everything flows to. And you kind of almost have that magnet effect, isn't it? Because you're plowing everything into this one thing and it's becoming more precious and therefore it starts working for you.
Yeah. And that was it. And it really was, and like you said, our function band is certainly within the Southwest, well regarded and popular, like yours. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're both lucky enough to be in function bands that actually, when you mention their names, certainly in our areas, most people have heard of us. Do you know what I mean? And that's nice to know because it means, and the good thing about being a wedding band is people are always getting married. So it's almost like an endless resource of people that are wanting your time. And, so, I kind of started prioritizing bits and bobs with that. And eventually I got to the stage where I'm like, right, I'm earning enough now. I could survive purely on this music wage. So I cut college completely. And then began, and this was only three and a half years ago now. But from that started a real exciting kind of new chapter in my musical life.
How did it feel when you worked your last day at the college and you knew that the next day was a complete blank page?
It was lush. It was.
What did you do? What did you do when you woke up in the morning? What happened on that day when you had nothing than your music?
Well, I did the same thing that I do every morning, Kat, which is I'm not a morning person. So when I wake up, I look like a walking corpse. And until I've gone down and had my shower and wiped the gunk from my eyes and done everything, I used to say to my students, I was like, if you've got me first period, I'm really sorry. Like, if you get me second, you get in my A game. But if you got me first period, I'm still waking up. I went into work. No, obviously knowing it was the last day, so I was a bit, knew that there were a lot of goodbyes to do and stuff. But luckily, in my department, my boss was a lady called Katie Fry, who was an absolute wonderful line manager. Like, she was amazing. I was quite nervous when I said all these little steps that I was taking. But the day I sat her down and said, look, I'm thinking about kind of, going full time with the music. And she turned around and said, I was expecting this conversation 2 years ago, and she's like, you absolutely should be doing that. I can't believe you're not already doing that. How can I help you get there? She was that kind of person. She's a person that, although she was my line manager, she was interested in my well-being. And so the department all got together and, they gave me loads of prezzies and stuff, which was really, really lovely. Gave me a little scrapbook of memories. And so, I may have got a bit teary, Kat. May have got a bit teary, which anyone who knows, I get teary a lot. I cried in Shrek 2, for goodness sake. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, honestly, I'm a sucker. You put an emotional moment with some nice music behind it, and I'm done. I'm a wreck.
I think that's a creative's curse as well, though, because you're just in it, aren't you? You're just in those moments.
That's true. Yeah, you just go, yeah. But then from that point on, I was like, right, okay, now what?
Did you kind of like wander around in your room for the whole day? Because that's what I did. I was sort of like, oh, okay, I've given up everything that I know. What am I going to do? And I can remember that first day of thinking, oh my goodness, this is what I can do with my time now. And on that first day, I did nothing. I was like,
Yes.
I've just wasted 8 hours of time doing nothing that I, intended to do.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. And unfortunately, I'm with you a bit too much because once again, the irony being that this is a moment called that brave moment that you step out into these things. I am the worst procrastinator in the history of mankind.
But are you a kind of like fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy? As in, if something needs to be getting done, then you leave it till like the very, very last minute and then you do it and it's amazing anyway.
Well, yes, so far. I'm waiting for the day that train derails. Do you know what I mean? But I'm very much, it's really funny. I've realised that I'm absolutely rubbish at motivating myself to do something, but I'm very, very good if someone else has told me to do something. So literally last night, Richard James, another singer-songwriter.
Shout out Richard James.
Shout out Richard James. Whoop, whoop. He's been singer-songwriting for a long, long time now because, he's getting old. And, he literally sent me a voice note challenge saying, right, you're going to do some loop videos, one a week, over the whole of Lent. I feel I need to do this for you because I'm getting a bit worried because there hasn't been a TV show I've asked you if you've seen in the last 12 months, but your instant answer wasn't yes, saw it was great.
That's a sign of a good friend, by the way.
I know. Do you know what I mean? And he was really funny because he was sending it as a voice note. So he was like, and I know this might make you... He was being really funny. It's like, you know when your parents trying to cushion the blow of bad news kind of thing. He was literally going, I know this might be not what you want to hear and you might get a bit defensive upon hearing it. But Adam, I'm worried that in the last year, all you've done is watch telly.
Did you respond with, it's research for my screenplay? Because that's how I would have responded.
Well, it was very fun. He literally said, you can prove me wrong. Feel free to send me one back and tell me all the other things that you've done. And I did as well. But I said, I kind of said, no, you're absolutely right. I've not been as productive as I could be. However, and then I read off a few productive things that did happen during that period. But yes. But yeah, I'm very good when I'm given something to do, given a challenge. Someone says, you do this and you've got this amount of time. I'm great at that. Me doing it myself I'm very good at getting distracted.
How do you motivate yourself then?
So I find that because I know that my motivation, where it works best is when it's coming from other people. I surround myself by those people, by creatives that are constantly coming up with ideas. And I suppose we kind of are here now. Yeah. So I'd never seen myself as an original songwriter. I'd seen myself as a function band singer. And I was very, very happy with that. Until me, Richard James, and another wonderful guy called Lee Coleman.
Massive shout out to Lee Coleman, one of the most talented people on this planet.
Honestly, his voice, he's the voice, listeners, that other singers want to be.
He is melted chocolate, isn't he? That
he really
literally is it.
Richard was filming a music video for a song that he'd done. He wanted to do a live version of it. And it was a song called Undone, which was this beautiful slow ballad that he'd written. And he said, now I've done the version for the EP, but I want a video to go with it. And I want some really nice, tasty backing vocals. So he asked me and Lee to go with him. And we went to this little church in Exeter called St. Matt's, because it has really nice, those beautiful churchy acoustics. And he wanted it to be done like literally we're just all three of us. He's got the guitar. We're like stood in a little triangle and just, singing this beautiful song. So we did it, and the harmonies were delightful. And we had the best time doing it. And at the end of it, Rich was really, really chuffed with how it all came out. But he said, we should absolutely do this more often. And out of the back of that, our originals trio, Club Brothers, was born. And which was my first soiree really into the creative musical creative process where Rich was the songwriter, so he'd come up with the ideas, but then he'd go, right, this is the idea, what can we do with that? And then me and Lee had come in and really help kind of dash out the arrangements, the syncopation, where the harmonies should go. And to me, that stirred something in me that I'd not really been stirred, probably not since my creative writing days. Do you know what I mean? It stirred something in me where I'm like, oh, I'm contributing to a process for something that when it goes out, that's ours. And
it's something you can be so proud of, especially when you're collaborating with other people and you get to share that joy with your friends. And I know that a lot of people will want to, maybe from an egotistical point of view, or maybe just from an introvert point of view, want to create on their own and feel like they'd be too scared to share that process with other people in case something got diluted in some way. But actually, like you're describing now, it's something that I love to sort of personally relate to. You feel invigorated and galvanized, don't you, by just creating with other human beings, that human connection. Oh my goodness, there's something so special and miraculous that comes out of it. And the Club Brothers, you're absolute testament to what can be achieved.
And yeah, it's lovely. I love it. You're absolutely spot on. It really does. And like the way my life has gone, it weirdly enough has forced me into this position as well. It's almost like someone up there knew that I was going to be the worst procrastinator in the history of mankind. So because I can't play guitar, I don't play keyboard. The only instrument I ever learned was a brass instrument that only works in a brass band. So if I'm to come up with things creatively, musically, I need help. I can't rely on just me on my own. I have to get others, but that's great because that's where I work best. So at the moment, I'm co-writing a single with an amazing pianist called Matt Carter.
Oh, Matt Carter, what a legend.
I know, absolutely lovely. Once again, lovely man, incredible talent. So I had an idea for a melody that I wanted to get down, and bless him, they work well with me because I've got a very good ear. As in, I know what I want. I can hear harmonies, pluck them out of the air, etc., etc. Relaying that is a completely different story. So I go to Matt, right, this is the melody, and this is where it is. I need some chords to go with it. And he goes, how about this one? I go, no, not that one. That's not the one in my head. And he goes, that one? No, not that one. That's the one. That's the one. And bless you, most people would be like, are you kidding me? But so I'm doing that with him. There's a swing singer from Western, a guy called Marvin Monarque, who's amazing singer. We're doing 2 singles, one that he's written, a big band single that I'm just the singer on, and then a duet that we're going to be releasing next Christmas. And it's kind of sparked this thing in me in that, yes, when I've got other people, I'm great at kind of going, right, let's work together on this, let's do that, and all the other. If I'm left to my own devices, I'm not as good. But this is the itch that I'm going to be scratching over Lent with Rich's little challenge and Malupa, trying to create just little 1-minute videos of songs with harmony that I've just created completely with my voice.
Do you know, I'm going to so look forward to listening and seeing what you come up with, because I always enjoy when you do your little sessions and all the rest of it. So I'm glad Richard James has given you a massive kick up the backside, because I think the world will be better for it.
It's a funny one, isn't it? And I've realised that I've accidentally kind of done it to myself over the years as well. Like you said, you just for the listeners at home, when I went, pretty much, this is when the guest list started. When I went full-time musician, I decided that I needed to do something that would get me in contact with lots of different musicians and to help me kind of get ideas for basically how to kind of better myself and all the rest of it. So I started something called Adam in the Hat's guest list, where I'd invite a singer or a songwriter or whatever in every week. They'd come to my house and they'd pick a song. It was always their dealer's choice. We'd find a fun way to do that song. We'd record it and we'd put it online. And this was back in the day when Facebook algorithms wouldn't take down cover videos. And got guest after guest after guest on, which was wonderful. And then eventually I realized that I'm not a technical sound mixer, and actually it would be good if I could get someone to mix them for me. And then a wonderful sound engineer called Chris Tilk got involved.
I love that man. In fact, I really want to get him on the show because he is one of my favourite people in the world when it comes to all of that kind of stuff. He's
and
just
talk about
genius.
Motivated as well. This is a man who motivates himself. Like, if I had his drive, Cat, I'd be flipping world famous by now.
You and me both, friend.
Yeah, just so bless him. So although they don't happen at all at the moment because of the pandemic, but when they do happen, they happen slightly less often because obviously, you know, I'm hiring someone in to do a job, so I need to make sure that I've got the dollar to pay that person. But it means that they all sound a lot nicer and crisper and all the rest of it. But off the back of that, it meant that I made a lot more connections and ended up doing a lot more kind of gigs with people that I wouldn't gig normally with, and like do a lot of collaborative writing stuff. So yeah, it's definitely, I've accidentally given myself a kick up the bum as well without really realising it.
I love it. I love hearing you talk so positively and so enthusiastically about where you are now, because, you know, a lot of musicians, sometimes they'll start off with all the vibrancy, which you're exuding from every pore. And as life sort of beats them down, they give up on their dreams and they just fall by the wayside. So it's absolutely wonderful to hear a success story and see someone who's just going from strength to strength to strength.
Oh, bless you.
We're coming to the end of the interview and I'm so sad. I think we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 at some point, if you're okay with that.
Always. You know me, I love talking.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
No, not at all. I'm practically a mute.
So obviously it's called the brave moment. What do you consider one of your bravest moments? And obviously I know this is a retrospective look at where you've come from and what you've had to go through, but be it physically, spiritually or mentally, what do you consider that brave moment?
Interesting. So I think from a kind of personal and practical point of view, the fact that like I said, I am genuinely fearful of risk taking. I'm not a natural risk taker. The brave moment to actually cut the cords of what was my financial kind of bungee cord, you know, the guaranteed income every month, no matter what, of the college. From a personal point of view, that was my brave moment, because that's not something that was natural. I would have naturally done. I had to kind of make the plan and force myself to do it. From a performance kind of point of view, I'd say my bravest moment was a long time ago, I think, really, was when I was asked, and I completely forgot about this literally until you've asked this question. Once again, it was for a big conference run by the Salvation Army. I got asked to write a series of sketches for this thing. And what I ended up doing was writing a mini musical, but using famous songs and changing the lyrics. And that wasn't the brave part, that I was putting something out there that, you know, that I'd written myself. I was doing that all the time. But that particular thing was in front of a crowd of about 12,000 people.
Wow.
Which at that point in my life, I was only 16, 17 at that point, was something that I, you know, was insane to me, you know, and doing this thing. So to me, stepping out onto that stage and putting myself out there and putting something that I'd created out there to that bigger crowd was probably the bravest thing as a creative I've ever done. And that actually spurred me on then to do many more things like that in front of big crowds, which nowadays, although they could be seen as brave moments, because I kind of know how they tend to go, they're more like my excited moments, if that makes sense. You know, I step out on the stage and go, instead of going, oh my gosh, this massive audience is looking at me, I step out and go, this audience is mine. I will mold you. You will be my playthings.
And I've seen that happen. They totally are.
It's a fun thing. One day they'll turn on me, Kat, and that'll be it. My career will be done. But until that day, you're all putty in my hands. Hear me? Putting.
Oh my goodness, I've so enjoyed talking to you today. It's been utterly insane as usual, but
we try our best.
You're just such a massive inspiration, not only to me personally, but to everyone that meets you. Just infectious in every possible positive, good way. So to end this interview today, I'd like to do a quick fire question round with you, Adam Moran.
Boom! I love a quick fire question.
I know you do, because you do actually every week have a quiz show, don't you, online?
I do, while the pandemic's been going on. Yeah, while the pandemic's been going on, I wanted to do something for people that are maybe stuck at home and unable to get out during like the shielders and stuff. So I started on my Adam in the Hat Facebook page every Tuesday night from 8 till 9. I run a completely free online quiz, and it just lasts for an hour. It's a bit of fun. Like, people mark themselves, you know what I mean? It's just a chance for some people to, if they're bored and if they're fed up, just to log on and have a bit of a something to take. I started it in my first lockdown, so I've done 3, one for every lockdown. So this is season 3 that's going on at the moment. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it involves a lot of questions and answers.
And on that note, I'm going to give you this quick fire question round. Are you ready?
I hope my answers are as quick as your questions. Yes, here we go.
Okay, deep breath. One of your musical heroes.
Stevie Wonder.
Song you have to sing along to when you hear it.
The Friends theme tune.
Best friend at school.
Andy Aston.
Favourite motivational song.
Oh gosh. What's no, it's all in me. That's about a woman. I'm every woman. I'm every woman. There you go.
You are. Epic fail.
Well, my answer to that previous question.
Last thing you played?
A video game.
Which was?
It's called Control. It came free with my PlayStation Plus, and it was very good. It's a mind-bending game. It's really cool.
If you could have any other talent in the world, what would it be?
Ventriloquist.
Favourite book?
It's a graphic novel. And it's called Injustice, and it's written by a guy called Tom Taylor. It's very, very good.
Favourite film? I know this one will be hard.
No, it's easy. Stand By Me.
Oh, good choice. Favourite trait in human beings?
Oh, gosh. Honesty, although sense of humour comes very close second.
Worst trait in human beings?
Dishonesty.
Favourite self-attribute?
Oh, gosh, my beard. No. I don't know. Favorite self-attribute. I think I'm a cheery person, so I like my cheerfulness and the effect that has on other people.
Worst self-attribute.
I'm lazy, clinically lazy. I am.
Tea or coffee?
Neither. I hate hot drinks.
Oh, what would you have instead?
Coca-Cola.
Oh, Coca-Cola.
Although I'm giving it up. Well, trying to give it up for Lent, and it's killing me.
Favourite country that you visited, of course?
Prague.
Ooh, nice. What makes you laugh?
You.
I think that goes both ways without saying. Annoying habit.
Oh, annoying habit. Oh, harmonising with everything.
Oh my goodness, I share that annoying habit, by the way. It's awful,
I get
isn't it?
told off a lot when I'm on car journeys.
And the worst thing is that even though you've been told off, you can't help but continue to do it, because you have to get to the end of the song, because else it's not complete on an OCD level.
Do you do it with like ambulances and police cars and sirens? Me too.
I do it with Tim's. He's got an indicator sound that go like, not an indicator. Sorry, when your seatbelt isn't plugged in to the car and it goes ding ding ding, and they go ding ding ding.
Yes. Oh, it winds everyone else up, but you just love it. Yeah, me. Yeah, I'm with you.
Favorite animal?
Oh, do you know what? It used to be cat. Now it's a dog.
I love that there's only 2 choices.
Well, I mean, llama's pretty cool as well because of the Emperor's New Groove. I mean, I should have really said llama.
I'll allow you to change it.
Emperor's New Groove, best film ever. You should all watch it. Anyway, carry on.
Favourite food?
Chicken dippers. I just love chicken dippers. They just work in everything. work in a sandwich, didn't work on a plate with chips. Then just, apart from like, because if it was favourite like meal, it would be the Sunday roast. But favourite food, it has to be chicken dippers.
I'll take your word for it, being that I don't
Thanks.
eat chicken.
Oh yeah, because they do veggie ones now, vegan.
Do
chicken
they?
dippers.
Oh,
Yeah?
okay, I have to check them out. A weird thing that you do.
Oh gosh, what do I do that isn't weird, Kat?
That's very true. But I mean like gross weird.
Oh, gross weird. What do I do that's gross weird? I pick my nose when no one's looking. That's definitely...
But do you eat it?
No, not anymore. I was trained out of it at a young age.
Oh my goodness. Zombie apocalypse, what's your weapon?
Weapon of choice?
Yes.
Oh, a didgeridoo.
Why?
Cause, right? You know when you see like the people with those bow sticks, the really long wooden sticks?
Mm-hmm.
And they're really, well, it's like that, but thicker. So it's got more heft to it. So it's gonna smash a zombie head in more. And, if I'm trying to distract, if I'm doing the sacrificial thing where I lead them away so everyone else can escape, I can play it and it'll attract them. It'll be cool. And I actually own a didgeridoo, so that's...
Well, fair play. I can't argue with that.
Thanks very much.
Favourite old school instrument that you never hear anymore?
Harpsichord.
Ooh, nice. And finally, the best piece of advice you have ever received.
Oh gosh, this is going to sound so cliche because it delves back to my kind of Christian upbringing, but I just think it's the classic love one another as I have loved you. The idea is that you treat everyone else the way you'd like to be treated. I think is the most simple, profound, but best bit of advice anyone could ever apply to their life.
I love it. Okay, so I have one more question for you, and I think it will probably sort of lead on very nicely from that last answer. But What advice would you give to the world right now?
Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah, I'd say that, it's that classic. It's, it's always darkest before the dawn, isn't it? But dawn's always coming. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'd say. I'd say the world is in a very odd place, and I think we've all been through a bit of a roller coaster. But if we take the advice just to kind of be the light for other people, and then hopefully other people will be the light for us, and we'll all shine on. And then eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later, life will return back to some semblance of normality. We can start making music again and bring the party. But yeah, my advice would be essentially just to try, although it might not feel like it, try and find the good in every day.
Oh, I think that's a wonderful way to end this awesome podcast. I've so enjoyed it. Adam Moran,
Me too.
linking legend. So if people have been inspired by what you've been saying and they want to check you out online and stalk you a little bit, what are your social handles?
So it's all at Adam in the Hat. So Facebook, /Adam in the Hat, Instagram, Adam in the Hat, Twitter, Adam in the Hat. All one word on all three of those things. And then if they want that will take them through to, my kind of social medias. But also if they want to check out the Club Brothers stuff, at Club Brothers Music as well. That's the only original project I'm in at the moment that is out there for other people to hear. But there is more coming very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Adam, for giving up your time today. It's been so much fun.
Absolute pleasure.
Adam's reputation precedes him. From his sunny disposition to his incredible ability to turn his hand to anything and do a great job, people not only invest their time into all that he does because they know they are going to have a great time, but also their trust. What you see is what you get with Adam. What a great way to represent yourself. I have never heard a bad word spoken against him or by him, and even on down days, Adam always seems to find the positive. I know that if I'm feeling a little low, Adam is the one that I would want to go and see. Just as some cultivate misery, Adam cultivates kindness, and as you can hear, it's infectious. His sense of humour, charisma, his ability to laugh at himself, and his bright mind really allow him to perform in a way where everyone feels welcome in his company. This is rare indeed, but it is something we can learn from. Adam chooses positive. Adam chooses to see the world in a beautiful way, and he chooses to surround himself with people that will bring out the best in him and who allow him to be vulnerable and honest with himself. This is an incredibly self-aware act for a creative person. The biggest challenge that I often see in my clients is the ability to let go and be vulnerable. To let your guard down and really let people see you is tough at the best of times, what with social media and societal pressures. But the art that ends up making an impact seems to come from those that allow people into their personal space. Artists that are there to tell a story that's bigger than their talent, bigger than their judgment of their skill set, and bigger than the potential criticism that may occur as a result. So many of us go into a project with fear of the result before we even begin. We think about what others may think of us, what people will say, or worry about how people will judge our ability, which doesn't give us a great foundation to be completely and unashamedly free with our creativity. Try this exercise. Get a blank piece of paper and a pen. Now, if you have a garden or a nice place to go into nature, this works really well outside. If not, find a space in the house where you won't be disturbed for at least 10 minutes. First of all, close your eyes and take a deep, cleansing breath in and out. Let go within the body and just listen for a moment. Open your eyes and on one side of the piece of paper, write down what you can hear, such as birdsong, loud cars, people talking, your own breath, etc. Once you feel you are at a natural end to that process, close your eyes again and write down how these sounds make you feel. Do they relax you, make you feel tense, make you feel fizzy, electric, melted, alert? Feel your body reacting to the sounds and see if you can describe that feeling. Again, once you feel at a natural standstill, open your eyes. Now turn the page over. With these feelings and thoughts in mind, look at your surroundings. Pick one thing or area to focus on. Now, without trying to look down at the page, start sketching what you can see. Don't look down. Try and let go of the notion that you need to control the outcome or that it has to look a certain way. Keep observing the surroundings or object and let your instinct within your hands draw instead of your eyes' interpretation. Perform this exercise for as long as you want. When you're done, look down. What do you see? If you haven't been looking at the paper, your eyes will hopefully come across a chaos of lines and scribbles that represent how you felt and what you saw in the moment without anything obvious. Now see what you can find within what's in front of you. Maybe you recognize a part of the tree or chair you were drawing because you remember what it felt like to make the mark on the paper. If you like, you can go back into that part of the drawing and start adding detail to that section and make it stand out. Then, take the sounds and feelings that you've written down on the back of the page and add them into this drawing representation. You may want to put them in a different colour or draw them with a flourish. At the end of the exercise, what you will have is a captured moment of something free and truly observed. It may look like a hot mess in your mind's eye, but you have created something that instead speaks to your heart and the illogical, free-spirited, feeling and creative part of the brain. And the more you practice the art of letting go, the more you'll understand how vulnerability within art works. If you want to take this observation a little further, be brave and show someone and ask what they can see in the picture without giving them a clue as to what you saw. This is a fun way to invite people into your vulnerability and also to show that you can put something out into the world that may not look perfect, but perfectly captures a moment that you were engaged with. If you want to take this a little further again, I recommend checking out Tricia Stubberfield's work on social media. She runs a class once a month called Drawing Board, which invites people of all artistic levels to take part in free-flow art exercises just like this one. It's really good fun and a great way to feel safe yet vulnerable at the same time. We also learn from Adam that taking responsibility for our dream is imperative to its long-term success. Adam took control of his finances from the get-go so that he had the freedom to invest his time into his performance career, and he's right to say that this is a brave moment for anyone, in fact. This is actually something that took me a long time to learn, and I wish I'd learned it sooner. I was a very impulsive shopper in my youth, and as a consequence, I wasted a lot of money on things that now, looking back on, I don't even own anymore. What I didn't realise is that I was avoiding responsibility. When it started damaging my relationships, I realised that this lack of responsibility was the reason that I was failing myself emotionally. I was in a constant state of anxiety, and behind the scenes, I had to frequently ask people for financial help, which filled me with a lot of shame and embarrassment. And so, to make myself feel better, I would spend money I hadn't got again. I so wanted people to look at me and think I had it all together, but I didn't realise just how much I was damaging my own self-esteem in the process. I was also living in London at the time, and a certain lifestyle and networking comes with that. One evening out in a bar with friends, and you could easily spend a few £100s with nothing to show for it at the end. Debt is a vicious cycle that keeps you in permanent creative lockdown. And even though the spending part seems like a lot of fun at the time, it really isn't worth the anxiety it gives you when reality steps in. If you're fresh out of education, be realistic about what you can afford and be honest with your friends about what you can spend with them. Try not to be tempted into loans or credit cards, and sit down with an advisor or loved one that you trust. And again, embrace your vulnerability and look honestly at your finances. Come up with a plan going forward and make that part of your plan for the success of your creative art. If you want a career in the arts, you have to plan for it like any other business. Trust me on this one, and you could save yourself a decade of extra time and less worry. Also, hanging out with your good friends can mean just that without spending anything. Check out podcasts such as the Meaningful Money podcast. This is a great place to start, and with a little discipline, you will have a lot more freedom to do the things that mean something to you in the long run. If you can let go in your art, save up for the things that matter, and as a result create more time for your dream, then you are on your way to making your mark on the world. And if, like Adam, you can do it while spreading joy and making everyone feel happy in your company, then success will follow you. If you dedicate your energy to your art will repay you, and you'll find the avenues that will support your process. Focused work, intention, and motivation, no matter how you choose to get it, will result in good goal achievement, and that's a fact. As Dave Ramsey once said, if you will make the sacrifices now that most people aren't willing to make, later on you'll be able to live as those folks will never be able to live. Remember, life isn't about possession. That doesn't signify your success. It's about creating experience. When you invest in free time, you can truly dare to be brave with it. Now stop whatever you're doing, grab a cup of something comforting, and listen to the new single Stay from the Club Brothers EP, Drifting. Enjoy.
I'm on time to impress. She's walking in that dress, and now I'm thinking I'm in too deep already. She's just perfect without makeup. She's sipping on a teacup, and everything around me's feeling right. 'Cause now she's got me by the hand and got me by the heart, tells me what she wants. Ooh, what was that you said? Say it again. Ooh, already gone home. And as I see this day, she's telling me how it's gonna be. And yet it's fine by me. You know I want the same thing, and it's taking away every doubt and worry. So go take me by the hand and take me by the heart, and go tell me what you want. What was that you said? Say it again. I feel my heart beating. This is the end of a long, cold, loveless winter. Tell me, my friend, will you stay? Yeah, you'll stay. I can see you'll stay. So take me by the hand, take me by the heart, tell me what you want. What was that you said? Say it again. I feel my heart beating. This is the end of a long, cold, loveless winter. Tell me, my friend, will you stay? Yeah, you'll stay. I can see you'll stay. Oh, what was that you said? Go say it again. Oh, I feel my heart beating. This is the end of a long, cold, loveless winter. Tell me, my friend, will you stay? Yeah, you'll stay. I can see you'll stay.
Next week on the show, we speak to LGBTQ+ poet and comedian Robert Garnham, who takes us through his experiences working the famous Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. If you have a spare moment now, please like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in a review on Apple Podcasts, which will really help other people like yourself to find the show. Of course, you can also share the show with your friends by following us at the Brave Moment Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or on Twitter at Moment Brave, or just follow the Linktree on all of our social media platforms. It's been so wonderful to have you all here with me again. Please get in touch with your own stories, and remember, your brave moment starts now.